They do not conquer. They do not build. They do not dream. They only consume. When the sky darkens with chitin wings and the ground trembles with a billion claws, there is only one fate left for a world to be. This is the story of the Tyranids, the Great Devourer of the galaxy. Imagine a force of nature so vast, so utterly alien, that it makes the endless wars of the 41st millennium seem like petty squabbles. The Tyranids are not an empire seeking territory or a race fighting for survival in the conventional sense. They are a singular, terrifying biological entity, a galaxy-spanning predator driven by one insatiable instinct: to consume all life, to strip entire worlds of their biomass, and to evolve endlessly from the genetic material they harvest. They arrive from the silent, cold void between galaxies, a shadow falling upon the eastern fringe. At first, they were just whispers, cryptic reports of worlds gone dark, of distress calls that ended in piercing screams. The Imperium of man, ever arrogant in its might, dismissed them as another Xenos threat to be purged. They were wrong, horribly wrong. This was not just another enemy. This was extinction, given form. The Tyranid invasion is a meticulously orchestrated biological apocalypse. It begins with the vanguard organisms, creatures like the Lictor and which infiltrate a target world years, even decades, in advance. They operate in the shadows, sowing dissent, creating cults of worshippers who see them as saviors, blind to the fact they are merely fattening the cattle for the slaughter. These Genestealer cults rise up, destabilizing planetary defenses from within, creating chaos and confusion just as the main fleet arrives. And then, the sky breaks. The Hive Fleet, a living armada of bioships, blots out the stars. It descends upon the doomed world, and the true horror begins. The atmosphere is choked with trillions of airborne spores that begin the process of planetary digestion, terraforming the world into a pre-digested male. Swarms of gaunts, a tide of claws and teeth, overwhelm defenders through sheer, uncountable numbers. Towering conifexes, living siege engines, smash through fortress walls as if they were paper. Above, flying gargoyles and harpies rule the skies, raining death from above. Every single Tyranid creature is a weapon, perfectly adapted for its role, and all are connected by the hive mind's psychic consciousness of unimaginable power. It directs the swarm with flawless efficiency, turning billions of individual creatures into a single, coordinated predator. There is no fear, no hesitation, no mercy. Only the cold, calculating will of the swarm. To fight the Tyranids is not to fight an army. It is to fight a storm, a flood, a planet-sized organism that learns from every battle, adapts to every strategy, and never, ever stops. When the defenders are finally broken and all resistance is crushed, the final stage of consumption begins. Capillary towers, vast fleshy spires, erupt from the ground, punching through the crust of the planet's core. Ripper swarms, the most basic of Tyranid forms, scour the surface, consuming every last shred of organic matter. Bone, plants, even the bacteria in the soil. They carry this biomass back to vast digestion pools, where it is broken down into a nutrient-rich slurry. This slurry is then absorbed by the capillary towers and siphoned back up to the orbiting bioships, feeding the fleet and birthing new warriors for the next hunt. Within days, a vibrant, living world is reduced to a barren, airless rock. Its oceans gone, its atmosphere stripped away. The Hive Fleet, replenished and stronger than before, moves on, a silent locust plague drifting through the stars, searching for its next meal. For every world that falls, the Great Devourer grows, its shadow stretching ever further across the galaxy. This isn't a war for control. This is a harvest. And in the grim darkness of the far future, the dinner bell is ringing for everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on this dive into the terrifying nature of the Tyranids. If you enjoy this journey into the lore, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more tales from the 41st millennium. Let me know in the comments which faction you want to see devoured or explored next. Until then, stay safe out there in the void. Imagine, for a moment, a perfect world. A world far from the endless wars of the Imperium. a world untouched by the whispers of chaos. This was Tyran, an imperial outpost on the very edge of the galaxy, a forgotten jewel in the vast darkness. For its inhabitants, life was predictable. Even peace. The greatest threat they could conceive of was a lone pirate raid, a distant rumor of Xenos conflict. They were blissfully unaware that they were standing on the precipice of an abyss, about to become the first human witnesses to an apocalypse that would redefine the meaning of terror. They were about to meet the two. The first signs were subtle, easily dismissed. Astronomers on Tyran noted anomalies in the star charts, gravitational fluctuations that defied known physics. Deep space augurs registered ghost signals, fleeting shadows moving in the void where nothing should be. These were chalked up to equipment malfunctions, stellar phenomena, the mundane tricks of an ancient, uncaring universe. No one could have possibly imagined the truth. No one could have foreseen that the universe was not uncaring, but ravenous, and that it was staring right back at them. The darkness was not empty. It was teeming with life, a single, unified consciousness of insatiable hunger. This entity, this cosmic predator, was Hive Fleet Behemoth. Its approach was silent, a creeping tide of biological horror moving through the void. Its vessels were not crafted from steel and plasteel, but grown from chitin and flesh. They were living things, bioships of a scale that dwarfed the mightiest imperial battleships. Imagine a mountain, miles long, bristling with spines and weapon symbiotes. Its vast interior a grotesque parody of a womb, birthing countless smaller horrors. Now imagine a fleet of such mountains, a swarm so dense it blotted out the stars, a livid nebula of teeth and claws, descending upon a single, unsuspecting world. For the people of Tyran, the end came not as a battle, but as a cataclysm. The first real warning was when the sky itself turned dark. Not the darkness of night, but a roiling, organic eclipse as the Hive fleet entered orbit. The planetary defense lasers, designed to ward off raiders, fired into the approaching mass. The beams were swallowed without effect, like pebbles thrown into an ocean. Panic, a feeling long absent from Tyran, erupted in the streets. What were they facing on Orc W, a fleet of Eldar corsairs? The truth was infinitely more terrifying. Then, the sky fell. That's how the few, traumatized survivors who were later rescued described it. The sky itself fell upon us. It wasn't an exaggeration. The Hive Fleet began its planetary assault by disgorging billions upon billions of mycetique spores. These were not drop pods carrying soldiers. They were fleshy sacs that slammed into the planet's surface like meteors, bursting open to release a tide of monstrous creatures. The ground heaved as a living carpet of claws and fangs spread across the continent. A chittering, screaming wave of alien life. Imagine the scene on the ground. A planetary defense force soldier, trained for conventional warfare, stands on a bastion wall. He sees not an army, but a biological flood. Hormagaunts, scythe-limbed and relentless, swarm over fortifications in numbers that defy counting. Termagants, armed with flesh-bore beetles that spit acid, lay down a withering hail of and towering above them all, the true nightmares. Conifexes, living battering rams of armored chitin and muscle, smashing through defensive lines as if they were made of paper. This wasn't war. War implies strategy, objectives, a desire for conquest or resources. This was something far more primal. The Tyranids did not want to rule Tyran. They did not want to enslave its people. They wanted to consume it. Every living thing, from the mightiest megafauna to the smallest blade of grass, was biomass to be harvested. This was not an invasion. It was an extermination, an act of galactic predation on an industrial scale. The realization dawned on the defenders with chilling finality. They were not fighting soldiers. They were fighting the planet's digestive system. The Imperial Guard fought with the courage that defines their order. Lasgun, fire, heavy bolters, even artillery shells tore into the swarm. For every 100 Tyranids that fell, 1,000 more surged forward to take their place. The numbers were simply impossible. Worse still was the horrifying intelligence guiding them. This was no mindless stampede. The swarm acted with a single, unified will, a psychic gestalt known as the hive mind. It learned from every imperial tactic, adapted to every defense. Flanking maneuvers were countered before they began. Weak points were exploited with ruthless efficiency. It was like fighting a single, planet-sized organism that could anticipate your every move. In the command bunkers, desperation turned to despair. Vox channels, once filled with strategic orders, became a cacophony of screams. Reports painted a picture of utter annihilation. Cities were not captured, they were devoured. The swarm stripped buildings down to their foundations, not for salvage, but to get at the organic matter within. The air itself became a weapon, filled with toxic spores and clouds of ripper swarms that descended upon the wounded and the fallen, stripping them to the bone in seconds. The fate of Magos biologist Varnock, the chief researcher on Tyrone, is a particularly grim tale. He had dedicated his life to the study of Xenos biology. As his research facility was overrun, he locked himself in his laboratory, determined to record everything he could about this new species before the end. His final transmission, a data slate, recovered from the wreckage by a later reconnaissance mission, was a chilling testament to the Tyranid threat. It was a disjointed, frantic monologue, detailing the creature's terrifying their perfect synergy, and the overwhelming psychic presence he could feel pressing in on his mind. His last words were not a plea for help, but a warning to the galaxy. This is not a foe we can fight. This is extinction. They are the Great Devourer, and they are coming for us all. In a matter of days, Tyranid was silenced. The teeming cities, the verdant plains, the very oceans were gone. The Hive Fleet had done its work. Capillary towers, vast organic structures, were driven deep into the planet's core, siphoning its atmosphere and seas. The swarm consumed every last trace of life, leaving behind a barren, airless rock, stripped clean of all biomass. Then, as silently as it arrived, the Hive Fleet moved on, its belly full, leaving behind a dead world as its calling card. The destruction of Tyranid was a wake-up call for the Imperium of Man. A distress call, fragmented and garbled, was all that reached the wider galaxy, along with Varnock's terrifying death. When Imperial ships finally arrived to investigate the silence, they found a tomb. The scale of the devastation was incomprehensible. It was from this dead world that the new Xenos threat was given its name. The Tyranids. The first contact was over, but the war for survival had just begun. Hive Fleet Behemoth was just the herald, the first tendril of a galactic horror far larger than anyone could imagine. It taught the Imperium a valuable, terrifying lesson. There are things in the void more frightening than rebellion and heresy. There are predators for whom humanity is not a rival to be conquered, but simply prey to be consumed. The shadow of the Great Devourer had fallen across the galaxy, and its hunger is eternal. Thank you so much for watching. The story of the Tyranids is one of the most compelling and terrifying in all of Warhammer 40,000. If you enjoyed this deep dive into their grim arrival, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. Let me know in the comments what part of the Tyranid lore you find the most fascinating. Your support helps us continue to explore the darkest corners of this universe. We'll see you in the next one. Ever stared into the cold, black void between stars and felt a primal fear? A sense of being watched. That feeling has a name in the 41st millennium. The Tyranids. They are the Great Devourer, the ultimate predator in a galaxy, already teeming with horrors. But what exactly are they? Forget aliens. In the traditional sense, Tyranids are not individuals. They are living weapons, bioengineered nightmares crafted for a single, terrifying purpose: to consume. Imagine an army where every soldier is a purpose-built killing machine. You have the Hormagaunts, scything talons flashing as they swarm across the battlefield in a chittering tide of death. Then there are the Termagants, their flesh-bore beetles spitting corrosive acid, turning cover into sludge and flesh into soup. These are the Grunts, the endless waves designed to overwhelm and exhaust their prey. But the true horror lies in the specialization. See that hulking brute shrugging off tank shells like they're pebbles? That's a Carnifex. It's a living siege engine, a battering ram of chitin and muscle that can tear a fortress gate from its hinges. Its very presence on the battlefield is a statement. Your strongest defenses are nothing, and lurking in the shadows, moving with an unnatural speed and grace, are the Genestealer, four-armed hunters with claws that can slice through ceramite armor. They are the vanguard, the infiltrators that sow terror and discord. Long before the main fleet arrives, each one is a masterpiece of biological warfare. But who, or what, designs these creatures? The answer is as chilling as the creatures themselves. The hive mind. This isn't a leader or a queen hiding in the back. The hive mind is a collective, psychic consciousness, an unfathomable intelligence that binds every single Tyranid into a single, unified organism. A gaunt on the front line doesn't think for itself. It doesn't feel fear or pain. It is a claw, a fang, a single cell in the vast body of the Hive Fleet, guided by an intelligence that spans life. When you fight one Tyranid, you are fighting the focused will of a billion minds, all working in perfect, terrifying concert. This psychic link is what makes them so devastatingly efficient. They communicate instantly, sharing tactical information across entire war zones. An ambushed squad of gaunts on one flank instantly informs the rest of the swarm. A weakness in an enemy's armor is identified by one creature, and within moments, every other creature knows exactly where and how to strike. There is no insubordination, no rooting, no breakdown in morale. There is only the will of the hive mind, executed with brutal, relentless precision. They are the perfect army, a machine of flesh and instinct. But the most terrifying aspect of the Tyranids isn't their numbers or their monstrous forms. It's their ability to adapt. Every battle, every defeat, every single life they consume is a lesson. The hive mind learns. The genetic material of their fallen prey is absorbed, analyzed, and integrated. If your soldiers wear advanced armor, the next wave of Tyranids might have claws that secrete a solvent specifically designed to dissolve it. If you rely on plasma weaponry, they will evolve carapaces that can dissipate the heat. They are a force of hyper-evolution, and fighting them is like trying to fight a storm that learns from the wreckage it creates. Imagine this. You're an imperial guardsman. Your faith in the Emperor is your shield and your lasgan your sword. The first wave of Hormagaunts charges. You and your squad hold the line, beams of red light cutting through the swarm, dropping them by the dozen. You feel a flicker of hope, but the second wave is different. Their chitinous plates have a strange, reflective sheen. Your shots, which were so effective moments ago, now seem to splash harmlessly off their hides. They've adapted. In the middle of the battle, they have evolved to counter your primary weapon. The line begins to buckle. Panic sets and a conifex smashes through the barricade, its hide now shimmering with a bioelectric field that shorts out your heavy weapons. The Genestealers, once vulnerable to your flamer, now secrete a fire-retardant foam. You watch in utter horror as your comrades are torn apart by creatures that were, just minutes before, a manageable threat. You are not just fighting an army. You are fighting a biological supercomputer that is actively rewriting its own code to ensure your destruction. Every victory against them is temporary, and every loss is a permanent lesson for the hive mind. This is the grim reality of the Tyranid threat. They are not conquerors. They don't want territory or slaves. They are cosmic locusts, stripping entire worlds of every ounce of biomass, from the tallest trees to the smallest bacteria, leaving behind nothing but a barren, lifeless rock. They drink the oceans, they eat the atmosphere, and they move on. The Imperium of Man can rebuild a destroyed city. The Eldar can mourn a fallen craft world. But when the Tyranids are finished, there is nothing left to mourn. There is just nothing. An empty silence in the void where a world once thrived. So, when you look up at the stars, remember the Great Devourer. Remember the silent, hungry intelligence that drifts in the dark, an existential threat not just to humanity, but to all life in the galaxy. They are the shadow that consumes, the hunger that never ends, and their arrival signals the true end of all things. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the horrors of the Tyranid swarm. If you enjoyed this exploration of the 41st millennium, please consider hitting that like button. and subscribing for more content. Let me know in the comments which 40K faction you want to see covered next. Until then, stay safe, and for the Emperor's sake, watch the skies. In the grim darkness of the far future, the alien threat is not always a roaring horde descending from the void. It does not always begin with the chattering of bolters or the shriek of dying worlds. Sometimes, the end starts with a whisper, a promise, a hand extended in brotherhood from the shadows. Today, we delve into the insidious, creeping horror of the Genestealer Cults, the hidden vanguard of the Tyranid hive fleets. Before the Great Devourer arrives to strip a planet bare, it sends its silent herald, lone Genestealers, masters of infiltration. Stow away aboard massive void ships, traveling through the cold dark between stars. They are patient predators, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Their destination? The teeming, forgotten underhives of imperial worlds. The isolated mining colonies on desolate moons. The agri-worlds, groaning under the impossible burden of feeding a million planets. They seek places where hope is a dwindling resource and desperation is the daily bread. Once on a world, the Genestealer doesn't begin a rampage. That would be too simple, too loud. Instead, it seeks out a host. This first victim isn't killed, not in the conventional sense. They are subjected to a horrifying process known as the Genestealer's kiss. The alien implants a portion of its own genetic material into the host's body. This doesn't just alter their DNA, it reshapes their mind. The victim becomes a puppet, their loyalty irrevocably bound to the Xenos creature. They are the first convert, the patient zero of a psychic and genetic plague. This first convert, now a thrall to the alien's will, returns to their community. They go back to their hablock, their manufactorum, their family. They appear unchanged, but they carry a creeping corruption within them. They seek out a partner and have children, and this is where the true horror begins. These children are not fully human. They are hybrids, the first generation of the cult. They are born with a mixture of human and Tyranid traits, but more importantly, they are born with an innate psychic connection to their Genestealer progenitor, the Patriarch. To their parents, these strange-looking children are miracles, blessings in a harsh galaxy. Any deformities are hidden, explained away as mutations common in the polluted underhives. But as this first generation grows, they inherit their parents' social standing, but possess a cunning and charisma that is distinctly inhuman. They become foremen, gangers, community leaders, and slowly, subtly, they begin to spread the cult's influence. They too seek partners, and their children, the second generation, are more human-like in appearance. The process repeats. The third generation is almost indistinguishable from a normal human, and the fourth generation can be perfectly so. These are the most dangerous. They are sleeper agents who can infiltrate the highest echelons of a planet society. They can become planetary defense force officers, administratum scribes, even members of the Ecclesia. The genetic taint lies dormant within them, but their psychic loyalty to the cult, to the Patriarch, remains absolute. All the while, the cult grows in the shadows. It masquerades as a fraternal order, a workers' union, or a new religious movement promising salvation and liberation from the oppressive yoke of the Imperium. They preach of a coming day of judgment, when the star saviors or the four-armed emperor will descend from the heavens to deliver the faithful from their suffering. To the downtrodden masses, these are words of hope. They flock to the cult's banner, unaware that the paradise they are being promised is their own consumption. Imagine a miner, his body broken from decades of toil in the dark. He sees his family starving. The imperial tides grow heavier each year. Then, a new friend, a foreman, offers him a place. He speaks of a better way, of a family that will care for him, of powerful gods who will lift him up. The miner joins. He finds community, purpose. He doesn't question why the church services are held in secret, deep in abandoned tunnels. He doesn't question the strange anatomy of the cult's innermost circle. He only knows that for the first time in his life, he has hope. This is the cult's greatest strength. It preys on the failings of the Imperium itself. It offers a seductive alternative to a life of thankless drudgery. The cultists see themselves as revolutionaries, as prophets of a new age. They stockpile weapons, sabotage communications, and map out key infrastructure. They are a perfectly placed fifth column, waiting for the signal. Let's paint a picture. A chapel in the lower hive, lit by flickering lumen globes. The air is thick with incense and fervent prayer. A preacher stands before his flock, his voice a charismatic boom that fills the chamber. He speaks of the chains of the corpse emperor, of the glorious ascension that awaits the true believers. His congregation hangs on his every word, their faces alight with zealous devotion. "Bros, sisters," he cries, "the day of our deliverance is at hand. The star saviors draw near. They will see our devotion, they will hear our call, and they will remake this world in their divine image. We, the faithful, will be their honored children, the first to be welcomed into the arms of the four-armed emperor." The crowd roars its approval. They are ready to fight and die for this cause. And as the preacher raises his arms in a gesture of benediction, the loose sleeve of his robe slips down. For a fleeting moment, the congregation sees it. Beneath his normal human arm is another, a third arm, chitinous and clawed, glistening in the dim light. But they don't recoil in horror. They cheer louder. For this is no monster to them. This is a sign of their holy blessing, proof that they are the chosen children of the gods from beyond the stars. When the Hive Fleet finally enters the system, the planet is already lost. On the day of the invasion, the cult rises as one. The communications network goes dark. Planetary defenses are sabotaged from within. PDF regiments turn on their loyalist comrades, their last guns now serving a new master. Assassins strike down planetary governors and military command. The entire society tears itself apart in a bloody civil war, a planet-wide uprising that cripples any effective response. The Tyranid invasion fleet doesn't need to fight its way through heavily fortified defenses. It descends upon a world already in chaos, its inhabitants softened up and thrown into disarray by the very people they trusted. The cultists fight with suicidal fervor, believing they are welcoming their gods. They charge the towering biotitans, their faces twisted in ecstatic grins, thinking this is their glorious ascension. The final, tragic irony is what happens next. The Tyranids do not see their cultist followers as honored children. They see them as biomass, just like every other living thing on the planet. The psychic beacon that guided the Hive Fleet, the collective consciousness of the cult, becomes a dinner bell. The very gods the cultists worshipped turn on them, and they are consumed. Their genetic material and life energy reabsorbed into the hive mind. Their faith, their struggle, their revolution, it all ends as fuel for the fleet. The promise was a lie. There is no salvation. There is only hunger. This is the true terror of the Genestealer Cults. They are a cancer that grows within the heart of the Imperium, a corruption of faith, family, and hope itself. They prove that in the 41st millennium. The most dangerous enemy might not be the monster at your gate, but the friends standing right beside you. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the shadows of the 41st millennium. If you enjoyed this journey into cosmic horror, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more lore. Let me know in the comments which insidious faction you'd like to see us uncover next. Until then, stay vigilant and trust no one. Imagine looking up at your sky, not to see stars, but to see the harbingers of your world's end. Today, we're delving into one of the most terrifying concepts in science fiction. The planetary siege, a methodical, brutal process that turns a vibrant world into a barren rock. It doesn't start with an alien landing party or a declaration of war. It begins subtly, a shadow passing over the sun, a flicker in the communications network. Then, the first salvos arrive, not to conquer, but to disable. Satellites are shattered, communication hubs are vaporized, and planetary defense grids are systematically dismantled. This is orbital bombardment, the opening act. The goal is to blind, deafen, and isolate the planet, turning it into a helpless target, a sitting duck in the cosmic shooting gallery. The psychological impact alone is devastating. Hope begins to curdle into dread as the sky, once a symbol of infinity, becomes a ceiling of impending doom. Once control of the space around the planet is absolute, the siege enters its second, more terrifying phase. This is no longer about disabling. It's about deconstruction. Giant vessels, city-sized factories of destruction, descend into the upper atmosphere. Their purpose? Planetary stripping. They are here to harvest, to consume, to erase. The process is chillingly efficient. The first target is often the biosphere. Massive energy beams, wide enough to span continents, flash boil the oceans. The resulting steam, a colossal cloud of vaporized life, is siphoned into the ship's maw. Every microbe, every fish, every great leviathan is reduced to its base, raw organic material to fuel the invaders' war machine or feed their sprawling empire. Imagine the sound global, planet-wide scream of superheated water, the death knell of 1 billion ecosystems at once. With the oceans gone, the atmosphere is next. Huge atmospheric processors, like cosmic vacuum cleaners, begin to inhale the very air. Nitrogen, oxygen, every gas that sustained life is greedily devoured, sorted, and stored. The blue sky turns a sickly gray, then thins into a black, star-pocked vacuum. The world can no longer breathe. Any survivors huddled in sealed bunkers would feel the pressure drop, their instruments screaming warnings that mean nothing anymore. The air itself has been stolen. Now, the focus turns to the remnants of civilization. Cities, once proud beacons of culture and achievement, become nothing more than resource nodes on a tactical map. They aren't just bombed. They are broken, gigantic kinetic impactors. Essentially massive rods dropped from orbit, shatter urban centers into rubble. But the destruction is not random. It's a mining operation. Specialized machines descend to sift through the ruins, harvesting metals, plastics, and skyscrapers are melted down into ingots. Monuments become slag, and the accumulated history of a species is rendered into fuel. The process is merciless, automated, and utterly indifferent. What follows is the geological assault. The invaders are not content with just the surface. They want the whole planet. Planet-cracking technologies are deployed. Tectonic plates are fractured with directed energy weapons, unleashing catastrophic earthquakes that rearrange the very continents. The mantle is pierced, and magma is drawn up. Its immense heat and mineral wealth the planet's own heart is being ripped out to be processed and consumed. From orbit, the world would look like a cracked egg, glowing with fatal wounds. The final stage is the silence. After the oceans have been boiled, the air stolen, the cities dismantled, and the crust shattered, the great ships ascend. They leave behind not a conquered world, but a cosmic tombstone, a lifeless, airless rock, stripped of all value, drifting silently in space. There are no ruins to explore, no ghosts to haunt the empty plains. There is simply nothing. The complete and total erasure of a world and everyone who ever called it home. In the archives of interstellar history, among the countless records of dead worlds, sometimes a final message survives, a fragment of a voice, a ghost in the machine. One such fragment is the last known transmission from the governor of Cygnus X1's third planet. The data is corrupted, the audio filled with static and the rumble of planetary collapse. But the voice is clear, laced with a terror that transcends time and space. This is Governor Tar. To any vessel receiving this transmission, they are not invading. They are there unmaking us. The sky is on fire. They're boiling the seas. Our defense fleet, gone. Oh, gone. We sent the children to the subterranean shelters. But the quakes, the planet is breaking apart. Oh gods, they're not stopping. They're taking everything. The air, the ground, everything. We are being erased. If anyone can hear this, tell them. Tell them what happened here. Tell them to run. Don't fight. Just run. They're coming through the command center doors now. The transmission ends. That final, desperate scream is the last sound a civilization ever made. A chilling testament to the ultimate act of consumption. This concept, while born of science fiction, serves as a powerful allegory for our own fears of consumption, of being rendered insignificant, of total annihilation. It's a reminder of the fragility of worlds and the terrifying possibilities that lurk in the vast, silent, dark. Thank you so much for joining me on this rather bleak journey today. If you find these deep dives into the cosmos as fascinating as I do, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the universe, both real and imagined. Until next time, keep looking up. Ever felt that shiver down your spine? That primal fear of the unknown, of something vast and ancient lurking just beyond the edge of your vision in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. That fear has a name. Tyranids. Today, we're diving deep into the void to confront the single greatest existential threat to the galaxy. A horror that makes even the forces of chaos seem manageable. This isn't just about giant monsters. It is about the chilling realization that everything the Imperium has faced so far might just be the appetizer. To understand the Tyranids, you have to forget everything you know about conventional warfare, about motivation, about life itself. They are the ultimate predator. A galaxy-spanning superorganism driven by a single, terrifying purpose: to consume. They don't want your worlds. They want the biomass asterisk of your world. Every living thing, from the smallest blade of grass to the mightiest warrior, is just raw material to be broken down, absorbed, and repurposed. When the hive mind turns its gaze upon a planet, the process is as systematic as it is horrifying. It begins with a psychic shadow, a smothering dread that blankets the entire system, cutting off astropathic communication and sowing panic. This shadow in the warp is so potent it can drive psychers insane and render entire populations catatonic with fear. The sky darkens, not with clouds, but with a rain of messetic spores, each one a living drop pod carrying a nightmare. From these spores erupt the vanguard organisms, lictors, masters of stealth, move unseen, gathering intelligence and spreading terror. Genestealers, already seated on the world for generations, rise up in a bloody rebellion, crippling defenses from within. Then comes the main swarm. A tide of chitin claws and teeth floods the planet. Hormagaunts, numberless and frenzied, overwhelm defenders through sheer attrition. Termagants lay down a withering hail of fire from their bioweapons, each shot a living projectile. Towering over them all are the synapse creatures, the hive tyrants, and the warriors. These aren't just commanders. They are living conduits for the hive mind's will, directing the swarm with terrifying, unified intelligence. If you cut one down, another takes its place. The swarm never breaking, never faltering. And the bigger they get, the worse it is. Conifexes, living battering rams, smash through fortress walls. Trigons burst from beneath the earth, shattering formations. And above, gargantuan bioships blot out the sun, raining down acid and spore mines. Every battle is a losing proposition. For every Tyranid you kill, 10 more take its place. Every soldier who falls becomes fuel for the enemy. They learn from every encounter, adapting their tactics and evolving new bioforms with terrifying speed. You can't outsmart them because they are a singular, learning entity. You can't terrorize them because they feel no fear. You can't reason with them because they have no concept of diplomacy or surrender. They are a biological tidal wave, and all you can do is stand your ground until you are swept away. The Imperium of Man, for all its might, has thrown everything it has at this threat. Entire chapters of Space Marines have been lost. Billions of guardsmen have been sacrificed. Mighty fleets have been reduced to drifting scrap. We celebrate victories like the defense of Macragge against Hive Fleet Behemoth, or the costly stalemate against Leviathan in the Octarius War. But here's the most terrifying part of all, the truth that keeps Imperio Strategos awake at night, staring into the void. Every Hive fleet we have ever encountered, Behemoth, Kraken, Leviathan, all of them were just scouting parties. They are splinters, tendrils sent ahead of the main body. Think about that. The swarms that have pushed the Imperium to the brink of collapse, that have devoured countless worlds and extinguished entire star systems, We're just the scouts. The implication is staggering. A concept so vast it borders on incomprehensible. Somewhere, in the silent, starless void between galaxies, the true Tyranid swarm is moving. A mass of biological horror so enormous it would dwarf any fleet ever assembled. A concentration of life, of hunger, that could blot out the light of the Astromalican itself. The hive fleets we've seen are like the first few drops of rain before a planet-drowning hurricane. They are testing the galaxy's defenses, tasting its biomass, and relaying that information back to the Great Devourer. This is the ultimate nightmare for the Imperium. They are fighting a war they cannot possibly win in the long run. Every victory is temporary, a finger plugged in a dam that is already starting to crumble. Every Tyranid killed provides the hive mind with data. Every world lost strengthens the approaching swarm. They aren't just fighting an enemy. They're fighting a force of nature, a galactic extinction event given form and function. The arrival of the main Tyranid fleet would not be a war. It would be a harvest. It would be the end of not just the Imperium, but of the Orcs, the Eldari, the Tau, perhaps even the forces of chaos, and the all would become just more grist for the mill, more genetic material to be absorbed before the Great Devourer moves on to the next galaxy, leaving nothing but barren, lifeless rock in its wake. So when you look at the heroes of the 41st millennium standing firm against the tide, remember what they're truly facing. They are not fighting for victory. They are fighting for one more day. One more, or they are screaming defiance into a silent, hungry void, knowing that what has come is only the beginning. The real swarm is out there, and it is coming. The scale of this threat redefines the very concept of survival. What do you think? Is there any hope? Or is the galaxy simply delaying the inevitable? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks for watching this deep dive into the cosmic horror of the If you enjoyed this journey into the abyss, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more lore from the 41st millennium. We'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Somber, atmospheric music begins, subtly growing in intensity in the grim darkness of the far future. There is only war. We've spoken of empires, of gods and demons, of heroes and traitors. But what if I told you there's a threat so absolute, so final, that it makes all other conflicts seem like petty squabbles? An entity that doesn't conquer, doesn't negotiate, doesn't even hate. It simply consumes. Today, we stare into the abyss. Today, we talk about the Great Devourer. The Tyranids. To understand the Tyranids, you must first discard everything you know about conventional warfare. They don't seek territory for glory or resources to build an empire. The galaxy itself is their resource. Every living thing, from the smallest microbe to the mightiest warrior, is merely biomass waiting to be harvested and absorbed into their ever-expanding hive mind. They are the ultimate predators, evolution weaponized on a galactic scale. Their arrival in a system is not announced by grand fleets or declarations of war. It begins with a chilling silence. A psychic shadow falls over the sector, a phenomenon known as the shadow in the warp. It's an oppressive, sanity's-redding blanket that cuts off all astropathic communication, isolating entire worlds. Psychers scream as their minds are torn apart by a colossal, alien consciousness. For the defenders, this is the first sign of doom. They are alone, cut off from all hope of reinforcement, plunged into a terrifying psychic darkness. Soon after, the vanguard organisms arrive, creatures like the lictor-chameleonic hunters that move unseen, gathering intelligence, sabotaging defenses, and spreading terror. Genestealers, insidious infiltrators, may have been seeded on the planet generations ago, creating cults that rise up from within, turning society against itself just as the main fleet arrives. These cults don't just sow chaos. They actively guide the Hive Fleet, broadcasting a psychic beacon that says, "We are here. We are ripe for the harvest. The enemy isn't just at the gates. It has been inside your house for years, waiting for the perfect moment to unlock the door." Then, the sky darkens. The Hive Fleet appears. These are not ships of metal and steel, but colossal, living creatures, Biovessels, miles long, pulsating with horrific life. They blot out the stars. A swarm of chitin and flesh that eclipses all light, and from their bellies, the true invasion begins. Mycetic spores, like gigantic organic drop pods, rain down from orbit, each one carrying a payload of death. They slam into the ground, bursting open to unleash a tide of bio. The ground trembles as the swarm advances. An endless sea of claws, teeth, and chitinous plates. At the forefront are the Hormagaunts, side-limbed shock troops that surge forward in a chittering wave, overwhelming defenses through sheer, suicidal numbers. Alongside them, termagants scuttle forward, their flesh-bore weapons firing living ammunition beetles that burrow into flesh and explode. The air fills with the shriek of alien bioweapons and the screams of the dying. But this is just the cannon fodder. Towering over the lesser beasts are the warrior organisms, Tyranid warriors, the synaptic nodes of the swarm, directing the lesser creatures with the will of the hive mind. Carnif live in battering rams, crash through fortifications as if they were made of paper, their massive claws tearing apart tanks and bunkers with contemptuous ease, and soaring above the battlefield. Gargoyles darken the skies, spitting acidic venom onto the defenders below. Every creature is a perfectly evolved killing machine, designed for a specific purpose, all working in terrifying unison. What makes them so terrifying is their adaptability. The hive mind learns from every engagement. If you use heavy armor, the next wave will feature more carnifexes with bioplasma capable of melting ceramite. If you rely on air support, winged monstrosities will evolve to dominate the skies. They analyze your tactics, your biology, your very essence, and then create the perfect predator to counter you. They are not just an army. They are a hyper-accelerated evolutionary engine of destruction. For the Tyranids, every battle, win or lose, is a learning experience, a way to gather new genetic material to create even deadlier horrors. As the invasion grinds on, the planet itself begins to die. Capillary towers, vast fleshy structures, burrow deep into the planet's core, siphoning its warmth and minerals. Ripper swarms, small, writhing creatures, consume every last scrap of organic matter the dead. The wounded, the plants, the soil itself. They strip the world bare, leaving nothing but a barren, lifeless rock. Even the atmosphere is consumed, sucked up by the bioships in orbit. This is not conquest, it's planetary digestion. The world is being eaten alive, and commanding this symphony of slaughter. The synapse creatures, the hive tyrants, monstrous commanders that are the ultimate expression of Tyranid evolution, wielding bone swords and whip-like lashes while unleashing devastating psychic assaults. The Swarm Lord, an ancient and nigh-immortal being, a strategic genius that has undone countless civilizations. It embodies the accumulated experience of millennia of warfare. To face a Swarm Lord is to face a general who has already fought, and won your war 1,000 times over in 1,000 different galaxies. When the fighting is over, when the last defender has fallen and been reduced to gobbets of biomass, a chilling quiet descends. The planet is a sterile husk, its oceans drained, its atmosphere gone. The great bioships, now swollen with harvested biomass, retract their feeding tubes. The swarm is reabsorbed, its genetic material stored, ready to be repurposed for the next hunt. The Hive Fleet moves on, a silent, bloated predator, leaving behind nothing but a dead rock in the void of space, a tombstone for 1 billion souls. This is the fundamental, gut-wrenching truth of the Tyranids. They are not an evil to be vanquished, or a foe to be understood. They are a force of nature, a galactic extinction event. They are hunger incarnate. You cannot reason with a hurricane. You cannot negotiate with a plague, and you cannot bargain with the Great Devourer. The Imperium of Man, the Orcs, the Eldar, the forces of Chaos, they all fight for dominion, for survival, for belief. The Tyranids fight for none of these things. They are simply the next stage of galactic evolution, and everything else is just fuel for the journey. So when an Imperial guardsman stands on a trench wall, lascon in hand, watching that tide of chitin and claws surging towards him, he knows the stakes. He's not fighting for victory. Victory is impossible. He is not fighting for glory, for his name will be consumed along with his flesh. He is fighting for one more minute, one more hour, one more day. He is fighting to buy time for others to flee, to warn the next world, to give the galaxy just a few more precious moments before the all-consuming hunger arrives. The Tyranids are not invaders. They are the end of all things. To face them is not to fight for victory, but to fight for a slower extinction. Fade to black, grim, orchestral music swells. A final shot of the galaxy map shows red Tyranid tendrils slowly spreading, consuming star systems one by one. Next, we descend into madness. What happens when the orcs win the war? Music cuts abruptly with a final, booming note. Screen stays black.